A few months ago, scientists announced the San Andreas Fault is due for another major earthquake, specifically in Southern California, where there hasn't been a major quake since 1857.
The San Andreas Fault has always carried an almost mythical weight in scientific discussions about seismic activity, but what NASA's recent revelation has uncovered adds a new layer of urgency and intrigue. For decades, the fault line stretching across California has been studied, mapped, and monitored for its potential to unleash a catastrophic earthquake. Now, after years of orbiting satellites, ground sensors, and data collection, NASA scientists have confirmed the presence of a crack running along the San Andreas Fault that they believe is on the brink of a violent rupture. This finding does not simply add to the wealth of knowledge already gathered about the fault, it shifts the entire conversation about what might be approaching and what it could mean for millions living along the Pacific coast. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The announcement was not made lightly. NASA's Earth Science Division, in coordination with seismic researchers, revealed that advanced satellite imagery has picked up subtle but accelerating shifts in the Earth's crust along sections of the San Andreas. These shifts, invisible to the naked eye but glaringly obvious to high-resolution instruments orbiting hundreds of miles above Earth, indicate strain building at a faster pace than previously modeled. Crustal deformation, microfracturing, and unusual heat signatures have all been recorded, and together, they paint a picture of a fault system pushed toward the edge of release. Scientists describe the pattern as a crack that seems to stretch and grow, a visible scar of the stress brewing beneath the surface. This revelation resonates on multiple levels, because the San Andreas Fault is no ordinary geologic feature. It represents the boundary between two colossal tectonic plates, the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate. These plates are constantly grinding past each other, locked in a battle of immovable forces. Every inch of slip along this fault translates into energy stored, and when that energy is finally released, it manifests as an earthquake. Historically, such earthquakes have shaped California's landscape, carved valleys, shifted rivers, and toppled cities. The difference now is the precision of NASA's tools, which expose just how close this boundary might be to unleashing its next event. For residents of California and beyond, the implications are staggering. The San Andreas Fault runs nearly 800 miles through the state, cutting through major population centers and critical infrastructure. It slices near Los Angeles, skirts close to San Francisco, and intersects countless towns and transportation networks in between. To say that it poses a risk is an understatement. The very foundation of California's economic and social framework rests atop this geologic knife edge. NASA's finding of a crack signals not only that the fault is alive and shifting, but also that it could be primed to release energy with unprecedented force. The uncertainty is not about if, but when. Part of what makes this discovery so compelling is the method of detection. NASA's satellites are equipped with interferometric synthetic aperture radar, or INSAR, which allows them to detect minute changes in the Earth's surface over time. By comparing radar images taken days, months, or years apart, scientists can detect movements as small as a few millimeters. This technology has already revolutionized how we monitor volcanoes, glaciers, and landslides. And now it is being used to peer into the hidden dynamics of the San Andreas Fault. The crack identified is not a superficial fissure caused by erosion or human activity. It is a geologic tear, a direct reflection of the fault's deep and powerful mechanics. That NASA has confirmed its progression suggests a tangible signal of stress accumulation and imminent rupture. The history of the San Andreas Fault is punctuated with major earthquakes, each one reshaping the narrative of seismic risk in California. The Great Quake of 1906 devastated San Francisco, leveling neighborhoods and igniting fires that destroyed much of the city. The 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, though smaller in magnitude, reminded a new generation of Californians of the raw force lurking beneath their feet. Scientists have long warned of the big one, a seismic event capable of eclipsing past disasters, and NASA's discovery brings that specter into sharper focus. This crack, a visible marker of the fault's mounting stress, may be the signpost of that long-feared rupture. Beyond the immediate risk of shaking, there are wider implications for infrastructure and preparedness. California is a hub of global commerce, a leader in technology and home to vast agricultural regions that feed millions. Bridges, freeways, pipelines, power grids, and aqueducts all cross the San Andreas at vulnerable points. If a rupture were to occur along the stretch now showing signs of instability, the disruption could cascade far beyond local communities. The revelation forces new discussions about the resilience of these systems and whether the state and the nation has truly prepared for such an event. NASA's findings act as both a warning and a call to accelerate efforts in strengthening critical lifelines. Another layer of importance in this discovery lies in its contribution to the science of earthquake forecasting. Predicting earthquakes has long been one of the most elusive goals of geophysics. While no one can pinpoint the exact day or hour of a rupture, signals like those NASA has documented could become crucial markers in narrowing time frames and refining risk models. The ability to watch cracks expand in near real time represents a leap forward, a chance to align geological models with observable data. In the coming years, scientists may be able to integrate these findings into algorithms that could issue earlier alerts, buying crucial minutes or even hours for evacuation and protective measures. The San Andreas crack may be both a warning and a doorway to a future where earthquakes are not only studied, but anticipated with greater clarity. The cultural weight of the San Andreas Fault cannot be ignored either. It has been immortalized in films, novels, and media as a ticking clock of geological doom. But beyond dramatization, the real-life consequences of NASA's revelation are sobering. Millions of people live along or near the fault zone, and many have grown accustomed to periodic reminders of seismic risk. Earthquake drills, building codes, and insurance policies all stem from the reality of living atop this restless boundary. Yet the psychological impact of hearing that NASA has detected a crack on the brink of eruption introduces a new level of immediacy. What was once abstract, a possibility hovering somewhere in the future, now feels tangible, a fracture etched across the landscape and tracked from space. It is also worth considering how this revelation ties into broader planetary science. NASA's Earth-observing missions often focus on climate change, weather patterns, and atmospheric chemistry. But their instruments are equally adept at monitoring geological processes. By studying Earth in this way, NASA not only contributes to immediate risk assessment, but also advances understanding of how tectonic systems function on a planetary scale. The San Andreas crack becomes more than a local hazard. It is part of the larger puzzle of how planets breathe, shift, and evolve. These insights inform not only the safety of Californians, but also our grasp of Earth as a dynamic living world. The pace of change is another critical factor to highlight. The crack NASA identified is not static. Satellite passes over the region reveal subtle but steady widening, and ground-based seismometers are picking up microquakes, small rapid tremors that often precede larger events. These tremors act like whispers before a shout, small releases of energy that may hint at the coming roar of a major rupture. Taken together, the widening crack and these micro-seismic signals create a chorus of warning signs, each one amplifying the urgency of the discovery. Scientists now monitor these readings with heightened vigilance, knowing that each data point could mark the countdown to an event that has been centuries in the making. While much of the focus naturally falls on California, the implications extend beyond the state's borders. The San Andreas Fault is one of the most studied fault systems in the world, and what happens there informs seismic science globally. A rupture along this fault could refine models applied to other tectonic boundaries, from the Himalayan collision zone to the subduction trenches of the Pacific Rim. NASA's data, therefore, feeds not only local risk assessment, but also the international effort to understand and mitigate seismic hazards. The San Andreas crack becomes both a local crisis and a global case study. The revelation also forces renewed dialogue between science and policy. NASA's findings are a scientific breakthrough, but they must translate into public policy, urban planning, and community preparedness. Questions arise about whether current building codes are sufficient, whether evacuation plans are adequate, and whether emergency services are truly equipped to respond to a rupture of this magnitude. In a state already grappling with wildfires, drought, and other climate-driven challenges, the added weight of a potential seismic catastrophe underscores the fragility of human systems when placed against the forces of nature. The crack in the San Andreas is not just a geologic event, It is a societal test. One of the more profound aspects of this discovery is its timing. Humanity is entering an era of unparalleled technological capability, where satellites can measure the heartbeat of the planet with exquisite detail. And yet, this same capability reveals vulnerabilities that are as old as the Earth itself. The San Andreas Fault, ancient and inexorable, reminds us that no matter how advanced society becomes, it still sits atop restless ground. NASA's crack finding embodies this paradox, advanced science illuminating a primal threat. The revelation forces reflection on how modern societies must balance ambition with humility in the face of Earth's deeper processes. It is also essential to emphasize that while the discovery is alarming, it does not signify an inevitable cataclysm tomorrow. The language of on the brink refers to heightened instability, not certainty of immediate rupture. Geologic time does not always align neatly with human calendars. The fault may rupture in weeks, months, or even years, but the crack signals that the system is under severe stress. This is where the human element becomes crucial. How society interprets, prepares, and responds to such revelations will define the outcome more than the timing of the event itself. The crack is a warning, but it is also a chance for foresight. In many ways, NASA's revelation ties into the broader story of humanity's relationship with Earth. Throughout history, civilizations have risen and fallen in the shadow of natural forces, volcanoes, floods, and earthquakes. The San Andreas crack is a modern chapter in this ongoing dialogue. It represents both vulnerability and resilience, fear and ingenuity. It challenges scientists to deepen their understanding, policymakers to sharpen their strategies, and communities to strengthen their bonds. It forces recognition of the fact that living on a dynamic planet carries inherent risks, but also that knowledge is power. The ability to see the crack, to measure it, to name it. This is a form of empowerment even in the face of looming danger. NASA's announcement about the San Andreas Fault crack resonates because it fuses science, risk, and humanity into one narrative. It is not just a discovery in geology, it is a reminder of our place in the natural order. The ground beneath California is restless, and now that restlessness has been rendered visible. For millions, the revelation is both a warning and a call to action, a sign that the Earth is preparing to speak in the language of tremors and ruptures. The implications are vast, stretching from the streets of Los Angeles to the laboratories of international science, from the fragility of highways and bridges to the resilience of human communities. The San Andreas crack is more than a fracture in rock. It is a fracture in certainty, a reminder that Earth is alive, and that humanity must always be ready to listen. The San Andreas Fault has returned to the center of scientific discussion with NASA's revelation that a crack is forming and expanding, signaling that the fault is edging toward a possible rupture. While the announcement itself carries immediate significance, the deeper exploration of this event opens up multiple avenues of understanding, from the mechanics of tectonic systems to the societal, cultural, and even philosophical implications of such a discovery. To fully grasp the weight of what this means, it is worth diving into the wider dimensions surrounding the fault, the science behind its monitoring, and the ripple effects such knowledge can create. At the core of the San Andreas Fault's activity lies the principle of plate tectonics. The Earth's crust is not a single solid shell, but a patchwork of massive plates that float atop the viscous mantle beneath. These plates drift at the pace of fingernail growth, colliding, pulling apart, or grinding against one another. The San Andreas Fault marks a transform boundary, where the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate slide past each other in a horizontal motion. While this may seem straightforward, the complexity arises from the irregularities in the fault line, with some sections moving freely while others remain locked. Where the plates are stuck, strain builds. That strain does not simply vanish. It accumulates until the rock can no longer hold, leading to a sudden, violent release. The crack that NASA identified is essentially a visible symptom of this invisible tug-of-war playing out on a geologic scale. The importance of satellite technology in this discovery cannot be overstated. Before the advent of orbiting radar instruments, understanding fault dynamics relied heavily on ground-based seismometers and direct observations after quakes occurred. Today, satellites can measure the smallest surface distortions across vast areas, producing detailed maps of strain that evolve in near real time. The crack along the San Andreas is not just a line in the Earth. It is part of a vast pattern of deformation that satellites are now able to stitch together with unparalleled clarity. This capability marks a turning point in geoscience, moving from reactive study of earthquakes to proactive identification of warning signs. It is no longer necessary to wait for disaster to understand a fault system. NASA's findings show we can now track its whispers before it screams. The magnitude of energy stored along the San Andreas is staggering. Scientists describe the fault as a loaded spring, wound tight by decades, even centuries of accumulated stress. The amount of energy that could be released in a single rupture is equivalent to the detonation of hundreds of nuclear warheads. To put it in perspective, the Great 1906 quake in San Francisco released enough energy to power the entire United States for days. What NASA's detection suggests is that portions of this spring are reaching their breaking point. The crack is not just a superficial blemish, it is a manifestation of the Earth's energy balance tipping toward release. This understanding forces consideration of what scale of event could follow and how it might compare to the most destructive earthquakes in history. The geography of the San Andreas makes the potential consequences especially profound. Unlike remote or sparsely populated seismic zones, this fault cuts directly through one of the most densely populated and economically significant regions of the world. California's coastal corridor is home to nearly 40 million people, a global hub of technology, entertainment, and commerce. Major cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco straddle the fault, with infrastructure woven tightly across its path. Highways, rail systems, water aqueducts, and energy pipelines all intersect the fault line. When NASA points out a crack that may herald a rupture, it is not simply about geology. It is about the intersection of natural processes with human civilization at its most advanced. Few places on Earth combine such immense seismic risk with such immense societal complexity. There is also a psychological dimension to NASA's announcement. Living in earthquake country has long fostered a mix of resilience and unease among Californians. Earthquake drills in schools, emergency supply kits in homes, and regular reminders from authorities form part of the cultural fabric of the region. Yet, for many, the threat remains abstract until science makes it concrete. A crack captured by satellites and analyzed by experts transforms that abstraction into reality. People may not feel the stress building beneath their feet, but when it is presented as an expanding fracture visible from space, the imagination fills with vivid scenarios. The psychological weight of this knowledge can be both motivating and unsettling, pushing communities to prepare while also instilling a sense of inevitability. The discovery also reinvigorates scientific debate about the interconnectedness of seismic systems. The San Andreas Fault does not exist in isolation. It is part of a vast network of faults crisscrossing California and beyond. Movement on one segment can influence stress distribution on others, sometimes triggering chain reactions across hundreds of miles. NASA's revelation of a crack is not simply about one spot, but about how that instability might ripple outward. Could a rupture on this segment set off neighboring faults? Could it trigger events that cascade toward other regions? These are not hypothetical questions, but critical lines of inquiry now being pursued with fresh urgency. The crack, in this sense, becomes not just a signal of one rupture, but a potential key to unlocking how seismic energy propagates across entire fault networks. One of the less discussed but crucial aspects of such a discovery is its implication for resource management. California's water systems, for instance, rely on aqueducts that cross fault zones. A rupture could sever these lifelines, disrupting water supplies to millions. Similarly, power grids and natural gas pipelines that straddle the San Andreas could sustain catastrophic damage, leading to extended outages across vast areas. Transportation networks, including interstate highways and rail lines, could be severed, isolating regions from one another in the aftermath of shaking. These vulnerabilities transform the crack from a geological curiosity into a pressing matter of state and national security. The implications ripple far beyond local hazards. They touch on food supply, energy stability, and economic continuity for the nation as a whole. The role of international collaboration also emerges from this discovery. Earthquake science is a global endeavor, and data from NASA's satellites feed into models used by scientists around the world. By sharing insights about the San Andreas, researchers in Japan, Chile, Turkey, and other quake-prone regions refine their own risk assessments. In this sense, the crack is not just a Californian concern, but a global case study. The lessons drawn from it may guide preparedness efforts in megacities along other fault lines from Tokyo to Istanbul. NASA's work underscores the shared vulnerability of humanity to seismic forces and highlights how scientific collaboration can transcend borders in the pursuit of safety. The discovery also highlights the evolving relationship between humans and their planet. For much of history, natural disasters were seen as acts of fate or divine will, beyond comprehension or control. Today, satellites orbiting hundreds of miles above Earth provide real-time data on processes unfolding miles below the surface. The juxtaposition is striking. Space-age technology illuminating ancient geologic forces. It raises deeper philosophical questions about humanity's place in the natural order. We may not be able to prevent an earthquake, but we can now see its approach in ways unimaginable to past generations. The crack along the San Andreas becomes a symbol of this new era, an age where the boundaries of ignorance shrink, even as the scale of the forces we face remains immense. Another compelling dimension lies in how this discovery reshapes the narrative of resilience. California has long prided itself on innovation, adapting to challenges with creativity and resolve. The crack revealed by NASA now tests this identity. Will the state invest further in earthquake-resistant infrastructure, early warning systems, and community preparedness? Will individuals heed the warning to create emergency plans, retrofit their homes, and engage in resilience planning? The crack is more than a geological event. It is a social mirror reflecting the readiness of communities to respond. It challenges not only the state's engineering capabilities, but also its collective will. In examining the crack's implications, one must also consider the broader cycles of Earth's geology. Earthquakes are not aberrations, but essential processes through which the planet releases stress and reshapes itself. The landscapes we inhabit, valleys, mountains, coastlines, are products of such forces over millions of years. The San Andreas crack is part of this ongoing cycle, a reminder that Earth is a dynamic system in constant motion. From this perspective, the discovery is not just a warning of danger, but a testament to the living nature of our planet. It forces recognition that human time frames, decades, centuries, are fleeting compared to geologic time, yet they intersect powerfully when natural processes accelerate toward rupture. The crack also serves as a catalyst for innovation. Already, discussions are emerging about how new technologies could mitigate the risks of a major rupture. Ideas range from expanded satellite monitoring to artificial intelligence systems capable of integrating seismic radar and GPS data into predictive models. Some researchers even explore the possibility of engineering solutions, such as controlled fluid injections to release stress in smaller, less destructive quakes. While controversial, such discussions highlight the crack's role in pushing scientific boundaries. The discovery is not merely an observation, it is a spark for creativity, a challenge that drives humanity to consider bold approaches in the face of immense natural power. The cultural resonance of this event also deserves attention. Earthquakes have long shaped the mythology and identity of California. From indigenous stories of earth-shaking spirits to Hollywood's cinematic depictions of disaster, seismic events are woven into the region's narrative. NASA's announcement adds a new chapter to this cultural story, one grounded in scientific authority and space-age observation. The crack becomes not only a geological fact, but also a symbol in the collective imagination, a marker of both vulnerability and resilience. It may inspire art, literature, and dialogue about humanity's relationship with the land, enriching cultural expression even as it warns of physical danger. Economic considerations also loom large in this context. California is the world's fifth largest economy, and any disruption to its functioning reverberates globally. The revelation of a crack on the brink of eruption forces investors, businesses, and policymakers to confront the possibility of economic shock. Insurance industries may recalibrate risk models, corporations may reconsider infrastructure investments, and governments may accelerate funding for seismic retrofitting. The crack thus becomes a catalyst not only for scientific action but for economic recalibration, influencing decisions across industries. Its presence reshapes how risk is perceived, priced, and prepared for in a globalized economy. On a more personal level, The crack speaks to the human experience of uncertainty. Life along the San Andreas has always involved an element of waiting for the ground to move, for the inevitable rupture. NASA's revelation heightens this tension, offering more clarity but not certainty. People now know more about the fault's instability, yet they cannot know the exact moment of release. This paradox, greater knowledge paired with persistent uncertainty, captures the essence of living with seismic risk. It is a reminder that even with all our scientific progress, some aspects of nature remain beyond precise prediction. The crack, in this sense, embodies the human condition of navigating uncertainty with preparation and resilience. The global significance of NASA's discovery extends into education as well. Schools and universities now have a tangible current case study through which to teach geology, engineering, and disaster preparedness. Students can analyze satellite images, interpret seismic data, and explore the societal dimensions of earthquakes using real-world evidence. The crack becomes not only a warning but an educational tool, inspiring a new generation of scientists, engineers, and policymakers. It bridges the gap between abstract textbook concepts and lived reality, making the science of earthquakes vivid and immediate. The discovery raises questions about humanity's long-term coexistence with such natural forces. As populations grow and urbanization intensifies, more people live in proximity to seismic hazards. The San Andreas crack is a stark reminder that human expansion must account for geologic realities. Cities must be built not only for prosperity, but for resilience. Communities must be designed not only for comfort, but for survival. The crack symbolizes the dialogue between human ambition and natural constraint. A dialogue that will shape not only California's future, but the trajectory of societies worldwide as they confront their own fault lines, volcanoes, and storms. NASA's revelation of the San Andreas Fault crack on the brink of eruption represents far more than a scientific footnote. It is a moment of profound intersection between technology and geology, science and society, knowledge and uncertainty. It illuminates the hidden processes of the Earth, exposes vulnerabilities in human systems, and challenges communities to prepare for what may come. The crack is a symbol of both fragility and foresight, a reminder that while we cannot control the Earth's movements, we can control our response to them. It is a call to action, a catalyst for innovation, and a reflection of humanity's ongoing relationship with a restless planet. NASA's revelation of a crack along the San Andreas Fault and the suggestion that it may be nearing eruption continues to echo across scientific, political, and cultural landscapes. The story is not only about the physical Earth shifting beneath our feet, but also about how humans respond when confronted with tangible proof that the very ground they inhabit is unstable. While the event itself draws attention for its scientific novelty, there are many additional angles worth examining, each contributing to a fuller understanding of its significance. One perspective comes from examining the historical record of humanity's relationship with seismic risk. Long before advanced satellites and instruments existed, indigenous peoples who lived near the San Andreas Fault had oral traditions describing the ground shaking violently and reshaping the land. These narratives, passed through generations, reflect a deep awareness of Earth's volatility. Today, NASA's data-driven findings are the modern equivalent of these ancient warnings, offering not myth but measurement. Yet both forms of knowledge share a common theme: recognition that the Earth beneath California is restless. By placing NASA's discovery within this long continuum, one can appreciate how seismic awareness is not new but continually reframed through the lens of technology. The interplay between technology and natural processes also highlights the growing role of big data in geoscience. The crack observed by NASA is only one piece of a much larger dataset collected daily from radar, GPS stations, seismometers, and even citizen science apps. These streams of information produce terabytes of raw data, which must be processed, modeled, and interpreted. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are increasingly applied to detect subtle patterns in these datasets that humans alone might overlook. For example, small clusters of microquakes that precede a larger rupture might only become significant once identified through statistical modeling. The crack thus becomes not only a geological feature, but a data point in a massive network of information systems, signaling how Earth observation is as much a computational endeavor as it is a physical one. A crucial but less visible dimension of NASA's revelation lies in the ethical sphere. When scientists detect a sign as significant as an expanding crack in the San Andreas Fault, they face questions about communication. How much should be shared with the public, and in what terms? Announcing that a fault is on the brink of eruption can save lives by motivating preparedness, but it can also incite fear or panic if not conveyed responsibly. Striking the balance between urgency and reassurance becomes part of the scientific duty. The communication of seismic risk is as important as its detection, because human responses to warnings determine whether preparation succeeds or fails. The San Andreas crack illustrates this ethical tightrope, where transparency and responsibility must align. Another angle worth exploring is the ecological impact of a major rupture hinted at by NASA's discovery. Earthquakes do not only disrupt human lives, they also reshape ecosystems. Landslides can alter rivers, cutting off fish migration routes. Ground ruptures can destroy habitats, from burrowing animals to plant root systems. Reservoirs and wetlands may be drained or flooded, altering local hydrology. These changes ripple through food chains, affecting both wildlife and agriculture. In California, where biodiversity is among the richest in the world, an earthquake-triggered transformation could carry lasting ecological consequences. NASA's observation of the crack thus extends beyond human society, touching on the resilience of entire ecosystems. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on NASA's findings about the San Andreas Fault? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.